I'm pretty sure I've died well over 100 times in my 10-ish hours with Elden Ring so far, but Elden Ring has gotten a lot of 5 out of 5s and 10 out of 10s, but was it really worth those accolades at launch? Hey, I'm Sam with Busy Dad Gaming. Now, me personally, I haven't been the biggest fan of Souls game over the years. I even tried Sekiro a couple times, and I just couldn't even get past the first level in that game. For me, when it comes to relaxation, it doesn't really occur to me to go into a particular game and die numerous amounts of times. To the point where I want to chuck my controller across the damn room and call that relaxing. Now again, this is really a to each their own kind of moment. That's not me personally, but other people love these Souls type of games. And so when Elden Ring came out, a lot of people were considering this game a masterpiece. They really did enjoy it. After having about 10-ish hours with the game, I've ran across a good chunk of the game. I've gone through a couple bosses, some side stuff. I've ran across a good chunk of the map trying not to die in a single hit. My astrologer is a glass cannon. He can do massive amounts of damage, but you touch him once or you sneeze on him and he'll just die. So I would have to disagree overall that this game is a masterpiece, at least at launch. However, I am really enjoying the game at a high level, but there is some kind of dissonance that's happening that I'd like to dive into a little bit deeper. Now, if you spent any amount of time on the internet, you know that Elden Ring is essentially the second coming of sliced bread. Now, it's getting perfect scores across the board, and it is only telling part of the story as we dive into it. Now, for me personally, I wasn't originally excited for Elden Ring, and I just saw it was like, okay, cool, it's another Souls-like game that's open world, cool. Whatever. But as time has gone on, I've gotten more and more curious about the game, and then, you had the hype train, so all aboard, and I was actually starting to get more curious about the game, and I was actually glad that I did. However, in this particular game, it is a great game overall, but it is not all rainbows and sunshines and unicorns, or in, the Souls arena, Death Knights and Insta-Death. Now, there have been a lot of technical breakdowns of Elden Ring, one of them being from Digital Foundry that I would highly go and suggest watching, especially their comparison between the Series X and the PS5. But for me, the game on Series X has actually looked pretty good overall. And that's pretty much where you're looking at like the masterpiece stuff is really starting to kind of play into the part, because when you look at the performance side of this game, this is a very different story, and this is where that dissonance comes into play. When I first jumped into this game, I was sitting there hitting A, trying to connect to the server over and over again, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, is this a tale of what's to come? And it was a good question, because in parts, yes, it actually was. Now, as you dive into the open world in this game, to me personally, I thought it looked beautiful. You had those huge sprawling vistas, you had different environments and different weather effects, and then you also had those giant golden trees that were really cool in the distance, or if you were right up close to it, it also looked really cool. Overall, I thought the graphics looked really good in this game, but the performance is where it really started to catch me. So for example, as I was riding around the open world, you're not hitting 60 frames per second almost anywhere at any time, unless you're potentially in a dungeon where it's very confined. In the open world, not so much. So that was a big challenge. You had a lot of stuttering, a lot of jerkiness within the frame rate, and it would really detract from the overall gameplay, especially in a game that is based on a lot on looking at how your enemy is, what the encounter looks like, what you need to dodge or parry or block. It's very precise in some of those timings. There's not huge windows there. So when you're having frame rate stutters or jerk, you're probably going to die once or twice because of it. Another aspect that I really found challenging was the camera. Sometimes it would just get stuck somewhere, and I mean, that just led to me dying. And that could be potentially a get good moment, to be fair. So I'm not that very good at this game. So yeah, I died a lot. So going over just the performance issues, there's a lot of them, and if it's on PC, it's a hot mess from what I understand. I did not get this game on PC. I have it just on the Series consoles and primarily the Series X. I have not played it on the Series S. Now, beyond just the performance aspects, the other thing that I think that is really contributing to this game not being an overall masterpiece, and maybe this is just a me problem, which is very possible, is that the story is just meh so far. You are basically a tarnished. The Elden Ring was destroyed and cast across the entire world, and it's up to you to gather those pieces, combine it, and become the Elden Lord. Okay, cool. Whatever. The problem I'm having with the game is I'm 10-ish hours into it. I've cleared a couple bosses so far. I've missed some story beats. I'm still not super clear of what the overall story is within that higher level, arc or story. So I'm not sure what the plot points are so far. And again, maybe that's just me personally, or being only 10 hours into it, I haven't gotten to some of those other story beats yet, which is very possible. But so far, the story as a whole, I'm just not very invested in yet. And so from my perspective, between the performance issues and the overall story issues, that's really creating a dissonance between it being a masterpiece and something that is just a really cool game. Now, coming at this from a dad's perspective, it does probably sound that I'm a bit negative on Elden Ring, and in reality, I'm not. The overall game is really fun, and that's one of the core things when it comes to Elden Ring, is that from a gameplay loop perspective, it is a lot of fun, and it doesn't need to be fixed in a lot of those particular ways. There's some balancing issues that definitely would benefit the game, but from a gameplay perspective, I've really been enjoying it. Now, what's bringing me out of that experience is the overall performance. It really, really needs to be fixed and corrected. It probably should have had some more time in the oven, to be honest. The overall story, I need to be more invested in this particular story to see it being a masterpiece and it being at that really high level of a game that is deserving of some of those really high level accolades. So for those reasons, I'm really hoping those things get fixed, and then I could potentially see it being a masterpiece. But at this point, especially within this launch window, I'm not seeing it, but time will tell. Now, if you're still unsure what to play on your Xbox, make sure to check out my reviews on both Far Cry 6 and Guardians of the Galaxy, of which Guardians of the Galaxy is now coming to Game Pass. So now you don't even have to pay for it if you already have the subscription. Make sure to check that review out and see if that game is going to be a good fit for you, and I'll see you over there.